Andy Warhol said, in the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. Today, I'll be saving my 15 minutes for the future, so rest assured I'll be using up time that is proportional to my age and experience. While I am a young person passionate about the environment, I stand here today not to persuade you to the environmental cause, but to convict you of your own cause. And I think the best way to do this would be to eliminate misconceptions that we might have about the influence that we possess. Misconceptions that I myself had a few years ago. While I do not have many words of wisdom to offer you today, what I do have is plenty of anecdotes that will hopefully bring you through what I went through as an environmentalist and dispel any notion that your efforts are insignificant or that you don't matter. The greatest misconception that we have about our influence is that we think we're too insignificant to make a difference. We think we are just a puny one person in a world of 7 billion, and that amounts to a 1.42 times 10 to the power of negative 10 chance of impacting someone. But people don't set out on causes to change the world. They set out on causes to change something in their world. In your world, you matter, and what you do will definitely create a ripple in your community and your world. Take, for example, this youth. Lynn Doe is an Australian youth who initiated the Change a Million Light Bulbs campaign when she was just 15 years old. She simply started out with school talks and public campaigns, but these efforts culminated in the legislature phasing out incandescent light bulbs. Alina Poko is a Nepalese youth from the Nepalese Youth for Climate Action. For the past few years, she has been going to COP conferences, galvanizing action on the ground, and meeting with senior government officials, and have since managed to place climate change on the national agenda. Now, what did this youth do to make such a large impact on a national level? I believe it is due to the exponential nature in which ideas spread. One person influences another 2 people, who influence another 2 people each, and so on and so forth, until 8,000 people are reached with just 13 of such chain reactions. This is why ideas such as Facebook and Twitter spread like wildfire, despite efforts not directly targeting every single one of us. Rather, it is our friend who nudges us into setting up a Facebook account. Similarly, we matter in our spheres of influence. I am not a charismatic person by nature, but simply by living out my cause as an environmentalist, I've managed to influence many people around me. And when they experience my decision-making process, they think about the environment the next time they make the same decision. For example, when I go out for lunch with my friends, I consciously opt against disposables, and it actually dawns upon my friends that using disposables is damaging to the environment. The next time I meet them, they proudly come up to me and tell me of the time that they stopped using disposables and chose another option instead. In sum, if you think you're too small to make a difference, you really haven't spent a night with a mosquito. Will you be that mosquito in your community? The next misconception that people will have is that they think it requires a huge leap of faith to get started in a movement. They think that getting started in a movement is like, it requires a huge sacrifice on their part, or that it requires a huge leap of faith, kind of like jumping off a cliff into freezing cold water. This is the reason many people ask me, how do you get so hardcore in environmentalism? And they look at me like I'm some sort of a queer specimen. And in fact, it's a running joke among my friends that it will be life's ultimate irony if I get killed by a falling tree. But the reason why they ask me these questions and they wonder about why I am here today doing the things that I'm doing is that they don't see the 4-year-long process that brought me here. To me, getting involved in a cause is not like jumping off a cliff into freezing cold water. Rather, it's like walking into water on a gently sloping beach. A process that gradually refines and molds one's character and convictions. Let me illustrate to you by sharing with you my experiences and my beginnings as an environmentalist. It really is very simple. I was in Bali for the climate change conference. No, I was in Bali for a family holiday when the COP13 climate change negotiations were being held there. So I was, biking, going to butterfly parks, and somehow subconsciously this compelled me to watch An Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore. As I was watching the documentary, I remember thinking to myself, this is a serious issue, but I kind of did nothing about it. 6 months down the road, I was in the school canteen in VJ, right here, and I looked at the chicken burger in my hand in a different light. I asked myself, do I really need this plastic bag? If the whole school was using this plastic bag every single day for 365 days a year, how much plastic would be generated? So the next day, I bought a lunchbox to package my food. And slowly after, habits started creeping to me, such as I couldn't stand the sight of an open door when the aircon was blasting. I didn't like newspapers being thrown away to be incinerated when it could be easily recycled. And I also started boycotting companies with poor environmental records. Despite this, I didn't venture deeper into environmentalism. It was a strictly personal cause for the next 1.5 years. I only joined Earthwatch, VJ's environmental club, in my 3rd year. As I led the club in initiatives, I had to probe deeper into issues, learn how to market ideas, and face criticisms. The conviction was no longer personal. It had to be shared. Earthwatch also opened many doors, and through it, I liaised with an environmental organization, an external environmental organization called Eco Singapore, a youth environmental organization, who graciously gave me the opportunity to go to Cancun, Mexico for the climate change conference. When I was in Cancun, Mexico, I realized the gravity of the situation when I saw the facts being presented to me. And I also felt the heart-wrenching consequences of climate change. It was about climate change will affect people in the Pacific nations, which are just east of Australia. They'll be displaced before 2025 when the floodwaters start creeping up to their houses, and they will be rendered climate refugees. It's also about the food security that people in Africa will be threatened with, especially when they're the poorest continent in the world. These things really compelled me to make a difference. So here I am today, 4 years after the spark was first ignited. If you were to ask me 4 years ago if I would have been able to make all these lifestyle changes, I would have thought you were crazy. But watching an inconvenient truth was me peering into the water. Bringing a lunchbox to school that day was me testing the water before going ankle deep in it. Joining Earthwatch and leading the club was me paddling my first baby strokes. And finally, going for international negotiations was me learning to swim. It wasn't a painful process because I simply wanted to take the next small step and the next step and the next step. And before I knew it, I'm here. And the lifestyle changes were so gradual, I really hardly noticed the difference. I was slowly becoming acclimatized to the temperature of the water, the deeper I walked in. As Lao Tzu said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Take that first step. The third misconception that people have, especially people who are already involved in causes, is the illusion that no one cares. This feeling often leads to a sense of frustration, rage at the apathy of others, and discouragement. Trust me, I was there. I got angry at the world because no one seemed to care about my cause. But after a while, I realized that it's not true that no one cares. Many a times, there's always a group of accommodative people who are open to your ideas and initiatives. I speak from personal experience. Because the people I approach during environmental initiatives, they care to listen and engage with you, even if they might ultimately disagree or stop short of taking action. But what I came to realize is that they don't take action not because they don't care, but rather because there are barriers that prevent them from doing so. Barriers such as the inconvenience of being environmentally friendly, for example, or footing the extra cost of a light bulb. So let me illustrate by sharing with you a story about a child and a starfish. There was once a 12-year-old girl who was walking along the beach in Langkawi when she saw starfish being washed ashore. She decided to pick one and pocket it to keep it as a souvenir. That 12-year-old girl was myself 6 years ago. Did I do what I did because I was simply wicked and wanted death to all starfish? No, I was simply ignorant. In fact, the starfish intrigued me, and this revealed my fascination with biodiversity. The very same motivation that harmed the starfish, when tweaked, can be used for the protection of biodiversity, if only I was further educated. Similarly, people are not indifferent because their actions don't seem to indicate so. Rather, it is barriers that prevent them from taking action. Barriers such as the lack of information I was confronted with when I innocently took the starfish. The solution then would not be to eliminate and dismiss these people as indifferent or apathetic, but rather to help them eliminate these barriers and to minimize the inconvenience of conducting themselves in a particular way or educating people about issues that you care about. This is something I learned in Earthwatch. I learned it the hard way. When I was in Earthwatch, I realized that people knew the importance of recycling, but they simply were too preoccupied to go out of their way to do something about it. And this frustrated me because I thought people just didn't care about the environment. But when I relocated the bins to a more strategic location during Earth Week last year, the recycling rate increased tenfold. I was taken aback. I realized that people care and they genuinely want to do good, but you just have to make it easy for them to do so. And slowly and surely, they will internalize your cause and begin to take initiative on their own accord. Still, feelings of insignificance will always overwhelm us, especially since we're dealing with issues that are not just issues in and of themselves, but rather issues that are entrenched in society. I remember the first Earthwatch session that I was leading, only 5 people turned up. And it was amplified by the large venue that we were in. We were in LT4 just next door. I also remember waiting online for the COP17 international negotiations for the outcome to come out. And I was just so frustrated at the direction international negotiations were taking. I wanted to throw something. There were many times where I felt discouraged. When the BP oil spill happened, I felt the oil wash away every single environmental initiative I took part in. But in the end, it all comes down to this. It all comes down to principles. Amidst the chaos of the world, which will always be present, will you stand firm on your principles and do what is right because you know that it is the right thing to do? In the end, it all comes down to the belief that your efforts are significant. I would rather take a small baby step every single day of my life than to sit back and do nothing. I still want to make a difference in this world, no matter how crazy and whacked out it is. Precisely because it is crazy that way, I want to make a difference. And I know that I can by first making a difference in my community. Also, draw comfort from like-minded people and with the knowledge that your collective efforts will definitely make a difference. During COP17, I was encouraged by this youth. Anjali Appadurai, I think she's just a 19-year-old youth, she addressed the COP17 delegates. What she said was, I speak for more than half of the world's population. We are the silent majority. I also admire the courage of Abigail Bora, a youth who interjected before the US chief negotiator could speak, and who said, I speak on behalf of the United States of America because my negotiators cannot. I also too stood in spirit with the Canadian youth who turned their backs on their negotiators because they were stalling negotiations for industry interests. Many people might think we are naive, especially with these actions that don't seem to make an impact. But I believe with the collective efforts of our community, which is called the Youth NGO on the international platform, we can make a difference. It is with a like-minded youth that your faith in humanity will be restored, and that you'll be recharged to run the race together. There will always be someone else who cares about the same issue that you do. And when you keep at that cause and continue doing what you love to do, in time, collectively, your efforts will surely bear fruit. As Margaret Mead, an anthropologist, once said, never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. You can make a difference in your world. You just simply have to take that first step. And when you are at a cause, continue to find that like-minded community to recharge yourself and rejuvenate yourself to continue pursuing that cause over and over again. For me, I chose the environmental cause because it is the cause that spans so many issues that I care about, like poverty, like sustainable development. And I know that our generation, if only we have the political will and a consolidation of resources, we definitely can make an impact in the world. We have the opportunity to restructure systems that create poverty cycles. We have the opportunity to challenge the model of sustained but unsustainable growth. And we can question if materialism should really form the basis of our happiness. I chose the environmental cause because it is the cause without a face. It's not just about trees. It's not just about the polar bear standing on melting ice. It's about the African woman who has to walk the extra mile now to get water for her family. It's about the loss of habitats for sea turtles, which in turn will be our loss if they become extinct. It's about the world that our children will be waking up to. It's about you and me. So that's my cause. But what is your cause, and what will you do to make a difference? Thank you very much.